meeting of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Regulations Subcommittee. We're going to review the minutes of February 22nd meeting. Everybody that's on the agenda, if you consider a motion to accept the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
And a motion, I need a second.
Ambrosi, second.
A motion and a second, then all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay, no nays. The ayes have it. All right, so next on the agenda, we have a guest speaker today, the George Benson, who I believe is the planner from the town of Newtown.
Yeah, Director of Planning, yep.
Director of Planning. So we have before us a text amendment to establish some new districts. The commissioners were unfamiliar with an overlay district, and Rick thought that since you have some experience with it, you might help us out. We're a little apprehensive about it. You know,
Yeah.
We're going to lose control. Is it going to be able to go everywhere? That kind of thing.
Yeah. We've had a South Main Village Design District for, sorry about that, since about 2004 or 5, I'm not sure about the exact date, for South Main Street all the way from the borough down to Monroe, basically for any property that touches South Main. Because we felt that the development in South Main was something we wanted to have a little variety in. We wanted to have a little leeway on what we could allow there, besides just plain business zone, because a lot of people are coming up with different ideas. And over the years, I think we have 5 or 6, I think 6 special design districts in that zone. And that's the way it works for us is we had an overlay zone that you could put on individual pieces of property. And basically you zone that piece of property for what use you wanted, which basically usually went with a business zone anyway, but there are little nuances that they had to do to develop the way they wanted to develop, and we couldn't do it without that type of leeway with the zoning regulations. It helped out a lot with different types of zoning, like we had Tractor Supply in because of that. We had a couple other places that didn't quite fit in with the zone the way we had it. And for instance, Plaza South had 2 different building separations. We wanted to have them closer together, things like that. That really, some minor things, but things that really weren't things you could do by variance because they weren't hardships. But we felt that there was something that we wanted to have a little more leeway and be able to approve certain uses that were good for the town. Obviously, you want to have that as your first prerequisite, but it's been that, and also we have a couple other design districts, one at exit 10, that we had specific things like we wanted to have that we didn't want in the area around it. We wanted to have, for instance, a drive-up window at Starbucks right off exit 10, but we didn't want to have any more in the rest of the business zone. So what we did, we had a special design district for exit 10 because it's specifically off the highway. We felt it was different than other parts of town. So you really try to use them for areas of town that are they're different than your normal circumstance that you want to do something with, but you don't want to spread it throughout the whole town. And it used to be called spot zoning, as you probably have heard that term. With all the court cases we had one court case with Tractor Supply where a neighbor claimed we were spot zoning by putting it there, using our technique as a overlay district. And we went up to the zoning court up in Hartford and we won the case. And the Superior Court case that upheld that we weren't, spot zoning really doesn't exist anymore. As long as it goes with your plan of conservation and development, and it's something that town wants and it fits in with the neighborhood you're not going to put an industrial building in the middle of a subdivision, but if you have an area in town that is on a major road with residential nearby, and you want to develop it for something else, if it makes sense for the town and the area, you can do it. And it's pretty, it's used a lot. It's an overlay zone, and you have the power because you decide if you want to let that person do that in that zone for an overlay zone. For design districts, a little bit different. You can actually make that district, change the zoning in that district, basically, if you wanted to. Like, obviously we have Sandy Hook Design District, where we actually changed the zone of the land to Sandy Hook Design District. And that, we have that in Hollyville too. Again, they're separate areas that deserve separate type of zoning. The overlay zone is more of a thing that moves around town to be used wherever you want to, when you want to use it for a specific purpose. But they're both concepts have been used. They're both been court tested. And I think they're very useful in planning because you want to have some flexibility, especially with a lot of the things that are coming up now that we haven't expected. A lot of things that weren't expected back in 1958 when the zoning regulations were written. And a lot of people, we're trying to get, as you are, businesses into town. It does help to have some flexibility in what you want to do with it. And that way it doesn't spread it across the whole town either, because you have a special circumstance in a certain area in town that you want to develop. Doesn't mean that applies to everywhere else in town. And that's where a design district comes in to help a lot.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we're looking at a design district, pretty much. That would go into an overlay district, I imagine, although both that's considered, called design districts.
Do you have the actual proposal in front of you, or?
Yeah, we can't talk about that, George.
Okay.
Kevin,
Right, it is
Kevin,
out
can you put
here.
on the screen? Kevin, can you put the towns on the screen, the zone map? So we can point out all the design districts?
Yeah, if Georgia could make me a presenter, I can throw that up for
Coming right up, Kevin.
to show how it's used in Newtown. So as George mentioned, that South Main Village Design District, you can kind of see here, extends from the town line all the way up. And there's underlying zoning that's either business or manufacturing or even residential in some spots. But the SPDs pop up as applicants propose to create them. So, for example, here's an SPD. Well, there's an SPD for where Tractor Supply is. There's a couple of them that have been established throughout the corridor.
Yeah, Highland Plaza is one of them that you probably might remember. Again, that was a use that had 3 buildings on one piece of property. So it's uses like that, and they needed they need closer setbacks because of the 3 buildings on the property. And we felt it was worthwhile because they're redeveloping. I don't know if you guys remember what it was like before, but they redeveloped that whole area. And that's what the type of thing you use it for also, is to help redevelop areas that have been, for instance, you want multiple buildings maybe in one spot, but you wouldn't want to rezone your whole corridor to allow multiple buildings in, let's say. But one lot might be suitable for that type of use. But again, that's not a hardship you can get a variance for. So this is a way to do it by planning, not by variance. So you're planning a good development and you're changing a specific, you might have one piece of property that's 10 acres, let's say, one piece, and the rest aren't. So you want to be able to allow that one piece to have multiple buildings on it. So it helps you with different size lots and different type lots and different type uses. And again, we did it, as Kevin said, it's all the way from Monroe down to, Monroe up to the borough. It does include, and actually Tractor Supply was a residential zone. It's the big piece. I'm pointing to it, but you can't see me point. Yeah, right there. And again, as you can see, it's surrounded by residential to the back. But because it fronts on South Main Street, and again, across the street are all commercial businesses. And this is the one where we won the court case for, because it did fit in with the South Main District and the area, the buildings right across the street. And it was within our POCD to develop South Main Street, basically. So again, it was all brought up in the court, and we won that court case with Judge Berger up in Hartford. So it reaffirmed that, and we've done it, like I said, we've had special design districts on South Main since I believe 2005 or something like that, 2004, 2005. And was the first one we put in. And it's worked out very well for us. It really has. We've been able to develop South Main. And you do have control because you don't have to approve it. They come in for a site plan and you actually approve the site plan, what they're going to do, the uses they want to put in there. And you have complete control of it, of what they can't come in and do what they want to do. It's a zone change, which, as you know, is hard to appeal anyway. So if you don't want them to do something, you can just deny them for reason, but it's very hard for a developer to deny a zone change. They can, obviously, they can appeal anything. But there's a lot of control from the commission over these types of zones because you really look at every single thing they're going to do. And what they do is they give you a site plan. In our system, the site plan becomes actually the zone. So anytime they want to change anything in that piece of property, they have to come back to you and tell you and get an amendment to their approval for the special design district. So there's a lot of control, and it's very. At first I thought it was too open, and then when I realized the application of it's very helpful. And again, it's controlled by the commission. It's not controlled by the developer.
All right, well, thank you, George. I think some of the commissioners might have some questions.
Yep.
Leon, did you have any questions?
Yeah, George, so when you develop this design district, then it's just something that could be placed in there, but you have to change the zone while you're within that district, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Once well, there's different things you can do with it. The first thing, you can leave it as it is. The underlying zone, you can do what you want. It doesn't change that. The next thing is you can rehab a building there for commercial use, the existing building, which is fine. You can do that also. Or you can go for a special design district with changes. That's a zone change. So you actually come in and do a zone change for that specific piece of property. And it's a new zone. We have SD1 through SD6. We have 6 different zones. And so that actually goes in your P&Z book as a new zone. And it's in the back. It's kind of like the thing you do for an 830G, where you have a specific zone for each piece of property. And again, the zone that you're creating is actually the site plan, the developmental site plan for that piece of property. So that what we did is we use our B2 zone as the basic zone. And then from there, if they have to make changes to it, obviously, if it's okay, they can just use a B2 zone if they want. But if they need changes, like for specific uses, that comes up a lot, that aren't included in the normal business zones, let's say. And like I said, sometimes there's setbacks they need that aren't normal, that they have a good reason for getting. I mean, we just don't let them do anything they want, but it's within, reason and within what is, again, good for the town. A good development, we try to encourage and try to bring them in. And it's really not a lot different than the business zone, but it does facilitate the development of the areas again, South Main all the way down to Monroe.
So you could change each parcel in that
Yeah.
zone? Okay.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't, so if you change one parcel, it doesn't mean that the next parcel next to it, you're gonna change. It can still be a
Exactly.
B2. Right. So you have all these, listen, you have an SD, you have different ones, like an SD2, SDD2, SDD1, and what are those different dimensions or different?
Well, again, it's a specific site plan. So
Okay,
you approve the site, well, they do a regular zone, like they have the uses, the setbacks, all the parameters are listed down like a regular zone. And like I said, we take our standard B2 zone and use all the parameters. And I usually tell them, use the same setbacks if you can, use the same frontage and everything else. And there, from there, they might adjust it a little bit for a different use, not normally allowed in the business zone. Or again, if they want to have, let's say, like Highland Plaza has has 3 buildings, which we normally wouldn't allow in the business zone. Because they had one big existing building there, and they had area for 2 more smaller ones. We felt it was a good design, a good plan. So we did that as a special zone for them. And again, it's only specific to that piece of property.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Rob, did you have questions?
Yeah, I understand that the commission, has full control of, what happens in, for each application. And as a commissioner myself, it doesn't come to me as a huge concern. However, as a non-commissioner resident, you're putting an awful lot of trust in the hands of 5 people in the town.
that was my concern to begin with too, and I agree with you. I felt it was an overreach of when I first saw it. I didn't write this, by the way. I inherited it 15 years ago. And at first I felt the same way. And we have to be careful with it. We bring it, we don't bring it forward. We bring it like everything else through the planning department first, and we review everything and make sure we're okay. I think with the review period and the public hearings and everything else, we've gotten a lot of input from people. And I think at some point you have to rely on the elected people to do the right thing. And I think everybody really wants to do the right thing for the towns. I don't blame you for being apprehensive, because I was too. All I can tell you is it worked well in Newtown, and it's worked, and people, we don't let anybody just come in. It's a long process to go through. We have different phases. There's more than I explained right now. There's different phases to go through. We go through a design review ahead of time, and we look at it in our office before it even goes to P&Z. We try to work on it a little bit, like we do with any proposal. This has different layers to it. There's like, I think, 2 different processes you have to go through to get to the final. It's not just one big thing. So it's involved. It's not just like a normal zone change. You have to go through a lot to get it. But I think it's something that's controllable by the commission, and the public obviously has input. But I don't blame you for being apprehensive. I was too.
Yeah,
It did work in Newtown. That's all I can say.
okay, well, opening up a dialogue to all this, certainly is more comforting hearing, some anecdotal information, how it's been used. Spot zoning also was a huge concern of mine. I don't want to steer this town down a road where we're facing constant litigation. When you were fighting with the resident on the Tractor Supply deal, that couldn't have, that had to be expensive to get out of that situation. And that's always a potential here.
Well, it's pretty short. It was like one hearing we had. It wasn't it wasn't extended very much. The judge really ruled very quickly on it, to tell you the truth. He looked at the area, he looked at the surrounding area and decided it was not spot zoning. And other, like I said, other court cases I don't have it in front of me, but it's been pretty much litigated that, again, if it's for the good of the town and it follows your POCD,
Mhm.
and it's something the town wants, it's a good development, then, the town has basically the right to do it, to allow it, I should say. And
Understood.
years ago, it was really anything we did, we couldn't even put anything next to, as you probably remember, anything, there's a residential home, we couldn't put anything right next to it. Very rarely anything business until we had more business on the side of it. But, South Main to us is a big mismatch of residential and commercial property. And it's something we felt we had to do for it. But it's, again, you can't put a shopping center in the middle of nowhere, but you can justify it by putting it on main roads, main intersections in town, and areas that call for development from your POCD, that are, earmarked for development. So it's not like it can be put anywhere. We have a limit on the area it can be put on too. That has to be on that corridor. You can't just take that overlay and put it anywhere else in town either. It stays in that zone, in that designated area, I should say.
Yep, I got it. You guys have certainly done a good job at Newtown. You've come a long way. And, just what I'm trying to keep in mind, we're a little bit of a different animal than Newtown. We have different complexities to our town that we work with other than Newtown, but you've definitely done a good job with it. It's come along nicely. Thank you.
And, we've had a lot of, there was not opposition to it, but there's a lot of discussion about it. So it wasn't, we just didn't let us do it, I wasn't there at the beginning, but there were a lot of discussions about the South Main Village Design District. There was opposition to it. But once, like anything else, you have a dialogue in the town, and it worked out really well for us in the end. And we got it through. But again, I don't blame you. You have to be careful with it. You can't put it everywhere. You can't allow it to be used wherever they want. And you have to keep control over it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Bruno, do you have any questions?
Yeah. George, thank you for taking your time out today to come out here.
Sure.
It's actually a huge help. I think something with Monroe, I don't know how familiar you are with it, was previous regimes made it extremely difficult to do things, very time consuming. A lot of times we scared a lot of people away, builders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the pendulum is definitely swinging back to where we're a little bit more friendly to build with. We've seen a huge increase of interest in the town with this swing. My issue is I don't want it to swing 100% the opposite way, where it becomes a free for all. But with the overlay, I think that gives you the ability to do both. Am I kind of on board with that?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got to Newtown, it was the same way, to be honest with you. We had a bad, or whatever, a tough reputation for developers. And my feeling has been, I think Rick is in the same area, is that if it's good for the town, let's work with the people and get it into town. Let's do something that you don't want to open it up to everybody, obviously. You want to make sure you control the development, but you have to work with people too. And you have to deal with people from the beginning and work through it so you can get a good development in the end. When you fight everybody all the time, you end up in an adversarial position. And to be honest with you, most times in the court cases, they win and they get what they want. What I've always tried to do is work with a developer to develop it the right way, and to make changes to it, to fit in with Newtown and to work with Newtown. And that's what this type of a regulation allows you to do, to work with the developer. You might not like the way it looks and just tell them, well, this is a special design district. You have to follow these rules. You have to go by, it has to fit in with the area. And you have a lot more power over the people when they come in to apply for this, because it is a zone change. It's not just an as of right use that you have to approve a site plan for. So there's a lot more, there is actually a lot more control over this than you would normally if you had an as of right use in the business zone. So I think that was but it does help you work with the developers, again, to come up with a good product. And
Well, I guess at the end of the day, that's the main goal, right? It's to put something in your town that being myself, Bruno Maini, I'm not going to be part of planning and zoning forever. I know a guy like Leon has been there since the town was created, and I think he was the first founding member of Monroe. But not all of us have that ability to be a part of Monroe that long. So I want to be able to stamp something that allows me to be proud of what's there. And it's something that me and Commissioner Westland have talked about, is like, you want to be proud of something.
Yeah.
And something that I learned actually from Leon is we are a planning and zoning. So it's something you want to make sure it's a long-term positive effect. Now, listen, you're going to swing and miss. I mean, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
But I kind of, the more you talked about this, the more it became clear to me that this is a very probably beneficial something for the town. Now, the way Monroe is situated, we have that 111 corridor, right?
Mhm.
We have 25, we have 34, we touch 110 a little bit. We could adjust this overlay to, I mean, in my head, I don't know how effective it would be to be like, oh, all of 111, all of 25, all of 110, all of 34 that touches those main routes can have this ability. Is it something that I know Newtown doesn't have as many major roads like that? Is it something that did you guys shorten it up on 25? Did you allow the entire 25, or did you start short and then opened it up? Like, kind of, can you give me a little?
Yeah, it's again, it's South Main 25, South Main from the borough down to Monroe is one zone we have. And then, across the town, we have the Sandy Hook Design District, which is right in the center of Sandy Hook. And to the west, we have Hollyville Design District, which is over there in Hollyville. So each one of those districts is a little bit different. Obviously, we have different regulations for each one. It's a little different than the South Main because we actually changed the zones of those properties. That was the old way to do it. Back in the day, you actually changed their zone, which is good too in certain areas. But you have different parts of town that's why it's good, because different parts of town are a little bit different. You don't want every part of town to be the same as the other part of town. You might have different needs you have over there. And again, people come up with what I tell people with this is, people come in to me and they say, well, I can't do what I want because it's not in your zoning regs, or I can't have this business. A lot of people come in and they just don't even come in because they read in our book what we allow, what we don't allow. And they don't even approach us because it's not listed as a use in our business zone. Where this, I tell people, listen, if you come in with an idea, with a business that we think is a good fit for Newtown, we'll work with you. In this type of a situation, you can adapt to that quicker than you could by having to do a zone change, and then you have to change the zone for every single other property in the business zone. This allows you a little bit more flexibility to work quicker with it. It still has to go through the process, obviously, You still have public hearings, you still have to go through it. But it gives you the flexibility when you're talking to people, like when Rick meets with somebody, he can say to the guy, well, we do have this flexibility, let's talk about it. You know, let's.
Well, I guess the nice part is you don't have to turn anybody away.
And you know, be honest with you, we don't. Well, some we have. I shouldn't say that. But
Well, no, you can't
yeah,
turn them away, but you don't. Initially, we don't have to turn anybody away.
exactly. And that's what it does help. It's like you said, it's more of a planning type of a thing than just going in by what your exact zoning is and having to fit in exactly as what it is. This is more of a planning tool to be able to use to be able to work with people and get something that you might not have considered before.
Right.
You know, a lot of things that we just don't. And I tell people all the time about certain type of businesses that might need a different, as you know, even through a different height or something, because it's a really specific business that needs a more height or whatever. You can work a little bit with them. You can go for a variance for some of it too, but it gives you a lot more leeway to discuss proposals with people.
My I still have a hard time with. Now, granted, I feel that our commission today is about the strongest it's ever been. I mean, not to make fun of Leon, but he is our senior member, and he could vouch for other commissions that we've had. I do feel like we're a really tight knit group. Like, I think we truly care about the town. I think at the end of the day, I think we're all friends. You know, where we truly respect each other's opinion. I think it's just as easy for me to have a conversation with Commissioner Lupo as it is to have, you know, as a friend, not even just work relationship wise. I think it's a really tight knit group, and I think an overlay district with this group would work phenomenal. My fear is if you put it in, and then, you know, obviously members are eventually going to start leaving and stuff, and then the next group comes in and they kind of do have a lot of power. They kind of do, you know, they kind of have the big stick. So it's hard to. That's the only fear I have, is not with this commission today. It's with the commission going forward. Now, you know, listen, I hope that this commission going forward is amazing and wonderful and all that kind of stuff. But that's the only holdup I would have, is not with today's commission. It's tomorrow's commission.
You could also, I mean, that's the way we do it in Newtown. You could also structure it the way you want in Monroe. You can say, let's say all the setbacks have to stay the same, but we'll talk about maybe some uses. We'll talk about different, you can craft it to your town too. You don't have to go by, you don't have to be as open as we are. You can be a little bit stricter. You can have more, you know, we have protocols to go through, and that's what you'll develop also, how many hearings they have to go through, how many meetings, what they can and can't change. You can say you can't change any, you have to stay with on what your zones are, but we have like a B2. You have to keep the frontage, the sides is a B2, but we'll talk about other issues you might have with the zoning.
Now, you use a B2 as your baseline?
Yeah, it's our basic business zone.
Okay, so that's what you use as your baseline. Right.
And from that, it doesn't vary that much from there. But again, there's uses that we haven't, you know, as you know, there's uses that pop up that you never thought of being a use, and it might be something you want to have in town.
Yeah, there's guys like Kevin Soley that are, you know, they're very creative with.
Yeah, I know that. I know Kevin very well.
Yeah, but, real creative. Real creative.
I'll give you an example of what happened at.
Sometimes we got to write letters to faraway places to, you know, put them in check sometimes, you
know. And anyway, we had an example of one on South Main Street where we had a site that was up off Main Street, not right on the street. It's not very conducive to residential, but it was started to be built years ago for a retail building, and it went, they went bankrupt, whatever, and it sat there forever. And the guy came in and said, well, I want to do retail below and office above. So he started building it, and the bank came in and said, we're not going to fund you because you're not going to be able to sell it you need you need apartments above, not offices. So they came to us and we said, well, all right, we'll look at that. And they were in the South Main Design District. And at first we said, all right, we'll let you have, we actually changed the zones, all the zone to allow apartments above commercial in our business zone.
So like a mixed use?
That applied to everybody in the business zone across the town. And then the bank came back and said to me, we can't do it. And they had a new owner that bought it out, and they wouldn't give him a loan because he said, it's up away from the road and you don't see it, so it's not good for retail. So I want to do all apartments above and below. So I'm like, we don't want to allow that in every business zone because we can't afford to do that. But it was in a very unusual circumstance where he had a building half built and the guy was going to go bankrupt, and that it sat there for probably 20 years, half built. It's right up there. Kevin or somebody got it. And we said, all right, so we're going to have to, so we did a design district change for him to allow apartments above and below. But we didn't want to allow that in all the business zones, obviously, because we don't want, residential throughout. That was a very specific circumstance where that type of a zone allowed us to make that change for that specific piece of property because of the circumstances. Otherwise, it'd still be abandoned by, as we speak, it would still be a broken down building. So it does help with buildings like that. It's a very unusual circumstance, but it's an example of how you have some flexibility with properties. And it worked out well. Now it's built out, and they have apartments above and below, and they're renting them out. So, but that was one example of how we use the zone to help facilitate that, to be able to develop.
I really appreciate you taking your time out today, George, because that's helped me out a ton, to be honest with you, understanding a little bit more about this. I definitely think that I think going forward, it might be something we would consider. So, which is, anything to help our town. The nicer our town is, the nicer your town becomes too. So
Yeah, no, we've always worked with Monroe. Always tried to help out when I can, and vice versa.
Rick needs a lot of help, so yeah, you gotta work.
He can help me. You kidding me?
I don't know about that.
I think he's been around longer than I have. I'm not sure, but
But Leon's been around the most. So thank you so much, George. We'll talk soon.
Okay, anytime, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, Rick?
Okay.
Mike, how about Nicole? Mike,
So,
we gotta ask another. Nicole,
we
Does
can't
Nicole have
talk
a question?
about, sorry, somebody,
yeah, Mike, does Nicole have any questions? Does
Nicole,
Nicole
do you
have
have any questions?
I have them, but he already left.
Well, maybe Rick will have an answer.
I can always follow up tomorrow with you, Rick, and send you an email.
Okay, whatever's easy for you.
No, go ahead now if you have questions.
They're really pointed towards George, asking if he's had any barriers or any issues along the way. I know there did a lot of good in Newtown, but I'm interested to hear what the bad stories were, including if they've ever had any legal litigation resulting from denying development in one of these overlay sessions. And also, if he had to rewrite how theirs were written, what would he do differently? Is there anything he would change or include? So those are really my three questions.
Yeah, Nicole, I can answer the first part.
Okay.
The pre-application discussion at the staff level really sets the tone for the applicant. The applicant finds out very quickly if it's going to move forward or not. Very rarely will they move forward without the full support of the staff. So he said that works from time to time. The only litigation was with the Tractor Supply.
Okay.
And they prevailed on that one. But that is a good question, Nicole. If he could do it over again, what changes would he make?
Yeah.
And I'll get that, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on that.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I thought for the next two, I prepared some text. And Georgia, can you put that on the screen, what I gave you today?
So before we move on, Rick, I just have a question.
Sure.
Rick, so
Go ahead.
as far as the application before us and the public hearing that's open, at our last meeting, a couple of the commissioners wondered about whether we could discuss this at the subcommittee level. But apparently we cannot. Is that correct?
That is correct. You have to be at a public forum.
All right, so then I just want to make everybody aware that there are a lot of questions on this application before us. So at the next meeting, I think we're going to have to go through that line by line.
That is correct.
So I would expect that we're going to have to spend some time on this. So I'd like you all to look it over, the application before us, make notes, think to yourself what you would accept as far as density goes, as far as, X, Y, and Z go, so that we can, have a more meaningful discussion like we did with the other mixed use that we approved already. I mean, we got through that one. This one's a little bit longer, but I think we can get through it. So we're going to have to do that at the next regular meeting, which is what, Thursday, right?
That is correct.
All right. So just so you all know, have your questions ready. All right, go ahead, Rick.
Okay. I was asked by the chairman, because of the Desegregate Connecticut, to look at the existing accessory apartment regs. And I sent all the commissioners, but we'll just go through it. Overall, and I discussed this in great length with Joe Chapman. Monroe is very good as to where we are now with the accessory apartment regulations. They're fair. There's nothing out of the ordinary. And just to give you an idea, coming from Shelton, the house has to be in existence for 5 years. And that just doesn't work. In Shelton, you have to be related, either through blood or through adoption. That doesn't work anymore, especially with the definition of a family. So you are, as a municipality, ahead of the curve. And this is exactly what the Desegregate Connecticut wants to see. They want to see practicality. They want to see fair and easy to follow regulations. Now, having said that, I'd like to go to paragraph B. I put it in red. Right now, you require a minimum of 400 square feet and up to 800 square feet, but in no case shall exceed 25% of the gross livable floor area. The question that staff has to you, do you think the minimum is fair? Do you want to lower it anymore? And do you think the maximum is fair? Do you want to increase it? Now, keep in mind, we have not had any problems whatsoever. So at the bottom, it's 400 square feet. And the top is 800 or up to 25%, whichever is smaller. So I asked the subcommittee members, do you feel comfortable with status quo?
Well, why do we have to have parameters on there? Why can't we just make that decision on each individual basis?
Well, you can, but it's good to have a range. I mean, when Joe and I were talking, there are some arrangements where they would like to have just a one room with cooking facilities and a bed, because they spend most of the time down in Florida. So that would not, that would be inconsistent with the 400 square feet because that arrangement could be under 400 square feet. So that's why I'm bringing this out. We just haven't been presented with any, but down the road, because you don't have to be related, keep in mind, you don't have to be related in Monroe.
Right.
See the number be more flexible.
Hey, Rick, can I just point out a couple things as the admin who's normally getting all of these questions? So when people call looking to do apartments, number one, they're always very excited to know that they don't have to be related. I've never had anyone complain about the square footage. And there is also the opportunity for someone to present for a variance if they either had an extremely large house and they wanted it more proportionate, or if it's someone that's looking to just have a really small studio space. So there are ways to have a case-by-case situation if that's something that the commission doesn't want to entertain as changing in their regulation as well.
So continuing with that, everyone, do you want staff to relook at the way it's written and come up with an alternative version?
Well, if we have something that where we can change it, Rick, why would we even bother with it then? I mean, we could give them a variance if it needs to be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, we can give them a variance, right?
Yeah, but the variance requires going to zoning board of appeals. Do you want that extra layer? And that's what the Desegregate Connecticut is saying. Don't add these additional barriers. Put it in the regulations.
All right, so what would you do it as a staff level?
Well, I mean, you got to spell it out to give staff the ability to consider for something that's different
Well, that's
than the
the same.
traditional 400 to 800. As George has said,
So what would you want?
like a one room that's all inclusive.
No, but how many square feet would that be? I mean,
It'd be small.
Yeah, in suburbia, 400 square feet is small. A family room that's 24 by 24, that's 550 square feet. Just
All
to
right,
give you, a 24 by 24, that's a good sized room. And you can partition it. But you want to see like an efficiency, a one bedroom efficiency with everything in it.
what would that be?
It could be under 400 square feet. You'd have a toilet, kitchen, a very small kitchen, and a bedroom.
So if you
want
did
to
it
go down
that
that
way,
road,
well, I'm just saying, but even if you did it that way, you would have to require them to have all that stuff in there. Because somebody could come in and say, well, I want to make this room an apartment, and it won't be any, they rent it out to somebody and they just live there and they got to go get their own food somewhere else and they got to go get their own shower somewhere else. I mean, if it was an apartment, would it require to have all that stuff?
no, if it wasn't an apartment, there'd be a boarding arrangement.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying is if you were going to approve it as apartment, does it say that it has to have a bathroom, or does it say it has to have? Okay, so that's
We're going to go down the list
okay. All
of
right.
the requirements. So that's the key one right here is the size, 400 minimum, up to 800 maximum. Accessory apartment shall be located on a lot, blah, blah, blah. An apartment located with the parameters. And you get to the last sentence. Additions for the purpose of the accessory apartment shall be made only above or to the side or rear. You don't have provisions for the front because you don't want to disturb the appearance of an existing single-family house dwelling. Do you want to be more flexible in that, or keep it to the sides and rear, or going above?
I
No,
think
the
the
only
regulations are
provision,
well written.
What's that, Rob?
I think the regulations are well written at this point. I think there needs to be some parameters set in place. I'll be the first to indicate that many of these accessory apartments in town are not operating within these regulations. I'm quite sure of that, but at least we have them on record if we ever have to use them. So
To
I think,
enforce it, right.
yeah,
All right, moving on to E. This is a big one. This comes into play if you have a family member and you really want to keep an eye on them and they want to have access to the main house, or if you have to get to them because they have a problem. An accessory apartment shall contain separate from the principal kitchen facilities, full bath, that includes the shower.
Yeah.
Electric panel, and separate disconnect and separate access to same. You want to have a doorway from the main dwelling, the principal dwelling, to this apartment. Right now, the apartment has to have its own second ingress and egress. And that's the code. Once again, Rob, you hit the nail on the head. Do you like the standards? They are working well. I'm sure we have some illegal apartments because every town has them. But if we do get a complaint and they don't comply with all these provisions,
so what does that mean? Separate access to the circuit box, electrical panel?
well, not so much that one. It means the apartment has to have a separate means to get to it.
Yeah, external door access.
Right. Actually, you need two means of ingress and egress. But you gotta have a separate, which means you just can't come into the main dwelling through the main door. And then on the second floor, you got a connecting doorway that goes into the apartment. The apartment has to have a separate entrance outside. And that's the code. You can't change that.
Right, and that's the way it should be. What are you trying to change in here?
No, do you feel that a family member should be able to build a passageway from the main house to that apartment in case they need to respond to help, if it's a family member? Right now, it's a solid wall. It's two separate units. I'm sure they've done it, but no one complains about it, Leon, you know?
right, right.
No, I don't have an issue with going with a separate door.
Okay, because Joe Chapman brought that up, because he was asked by a family member, we would like to have a separate door from our main dwelling into the apartment so we can keep an eye on our loved ones.
I think on an exception basis, it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think there's a problem with that.
There's no
Especially-
prohibition to that, right? There's no prohibition to that in the regulations. All right, so yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, well, let's move on. All right now, the owner shall file upon the land records, the town clerk's office, the certificate which acknowledges the apartment. This way we have acknowledgement of who they are. We did not do this when I was in Shelton. We kept our own list internally in the office. Monroe uses the town clerk quite a bit, and all your approvals, and including the certificate for zoning compliance on accessory apartments. Do you want to continue with that? Because that's something that you've done since the beginning.
What's that?
It's just another level that the applicant has to pay for, the recording fees.
No, I think because I have one and I have a separate address on that one. And the reason why I have it that way is because if for some reason there was a fire, it would know it either was in the in-law setup or if it was in my house. So I don't have an issue with that part of it.
Yeah, I'm asking
Just
about
dwelling, really. I mean, I think it has to be somewhere. It has to be that they know there's one there.
Yeah.
How would the fire department not know that?
Yeah, we should probably
We
just
do
leave
the
that the
land
way it
records, all the
is too.
departments are
Leave it alone.
notified. Okay. I'm just reviewing all the components
Yeah.
because Desegregate Connecticut is saying don't make unnecessary layers for the applicant. So it sounds
Yeah,
like we're in pretty good shape with this.
But I don't think that's an unnecessary layer because that comes out to be a safety thing because they wouldn't know where the fire was if it was in the apartment or if it was in the main dwelling. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think
Yeah,
that's a problem. I
I
really
agree
don't.
with you. It's worked well and it advises all the departments of who's there and all the relevant information that you need.
Okay.
So at the staff level, we're saying it's pretty good. And we would report that to the state if and when this issue does come up. As you know, we have to do the affordable housing plan in another year. The only thing that this doesn't do is these apartments are not a part of the affordable housing inventory because of the state's requirement, deed restriction for a minimum of 30 years. I hope the state legislators adjust that because
So that has to be adjusted before we can start using them towards our quota.
we should be, and it's been tried and tried for decades, and they say no, deed restriction filed in the land records and a minimum of 30 years.
Oh, so our hands are tied on this.
Yeah, it's just like modular homes or trailer parks. Shelton has 3. They can't even count towards the quota. It's wrong.
That's really wrong.
So I think we're in pretty good shape, and we'll look at it again and take it up when appropriate. Okay, Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. That was a very good presentation. Very good
Well, we needed
presentation.
to re-examine it. It's part of the Desegregate Connecticut, and it's part of the affordable housing plan, because we will make reference to it.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, the next section that I wrote, Mike, deals with the Pequannock River, the buffer that you wanted to talk about. I just threw together, what section it would be if you put in a provision in the zoning regulations as a buffer. The Conservation Commission was kind enough to share with us mapping and literature on that. I provided that to all the commissioners. So, Mike, I didn't know if you wanted to take the lead on this or if Barbara or Karen.
Karen, are you here?
Yes, I am, Michael. How
Do
are you?
Good. Do you want to give them a brief rundown on what this might look like?
Well, let me be very honest. I just found out yesterday that you were meeting tonight and this was going to be on your agenda. So I pulled out some things. I also looked at the EPA regulations regarding buffers. I have not seen what Rick has done.
Yeah, it was just simple, Karen. It's just the beginning.
But we wanted to make Barbara Thomas is also here, and who, as you know, is our Conservation Commission's representative to the POCD Review Committee. And we just wanted to be here. We'd like to work with you on this regulation. I know. Are we getting old, Mike? I think I've heard it a couple times. I mean, the map that Rick put up, I think, was one that was done when you were chair of the Conservation Commission. And we do have lots of literature. And we had talked about having a buffer for the Pequannock River for probably at least 8 years. And that was discussed during the Pequannock River Watershed Initiative between the 3 towns, Monroe, Trumbull, and Bridgeport. And I see in the 6.14.2 that there is a kind of a paren, a blank for how many feet. We've had everything on, we have, and if you look at the EPA standards, they go everywhere from 300 feet buffer to much smaller. The key to a buffer is what the final use is of the property abutting the wetlands or the river. It depends on slope, it depends on rock, it depends on impervious surface. There was at one time a general talk about having a 250-foot buffer. That may be too much in certain areas, that may not be enough. In certain, like I said, EPA in certain cases has a 300-foot buffer. But we realize that much of the river, and if you look at remember the sheet that was done, we're very concerned about part of the what the problem is in polluting the river even more by runoff into it, and that if you look at the handout, the advantages and the wonderful aspects of the Pequannock River and the Pequannock River watershed. But Rick, if you want to scroll up, but I really don't know exactly what you put in it, I'd be happy to look at it. I know Barbara would like to say something, but we're really here tonight to hear is that it?
Yeah, no, it's just the start of the discussion.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, this is just an introduction. This is just an introduction for the commissioners that this has been on the back burner for some time. I wanted to bring it up onto the front burner. We're making a lot of changes to the regulations. I don't want the public to think that the pendulum is swinging the other way, that we're becoming a rubber stamp commission here. We have interest in conservation as well as economic development. We're not spending all of our time on economic development. We're looking at some of the other quality concerns and environmental concerns in the town as well. So I'm glad that you can work with us, Karen and Barbara. And basically, that's all I really wanted to bring up tonight. It's just an introduction.
Michael, I have more information I could send, but if the sheet that 1/3 of the town of Monroe, approximately, drains into this Pequannock River and the Pequannock River watershed, and that affects Great Hollow Lake. It affects all downstream. So
Yes.
it is a great, it's a wonderful area, and we understand that it's along the Route 25. And if you remember, maybe even Leon is old enough to remember this too. The Pequannock River Initiative, 3 of the tasks that were approved by the town of Monroe and the other towns in Bridgeport and Trumbull, along with their own tasks, were one along near Great Hollow Lake. That the plantings have been done. There was also concern like behind Stepney School and also some of the business area along Route 25. So I think it's something to look at. I don't know if we can, if it's going to be easy to just put in one, so many feet, whether it be 125 or 150 or 200 or whatnot, because truly the buffer does depend and is only as good as the uses that are approved adjacent.
Yeah, well, we're not looking for a magic number here to put in number of feet at all. That's the last thing that we want to do, is to create a rule of a number of feet. That's not what we're looking at.
So, Mike, Karen, did you guys come up with some kind of a plan or how you want to approach all this?
No, we haven't gotten that far yet, Leon. This is just an introduction tonight.
No, but I'm saying is Karen and the Conservation Commission going to bring us something in front of us or bring something to us so we can?
If you would like us to find, as I said, I just found out yesterday that this was even going to be on your Regs Committee agenda tonight. And so I sent a few things to Rick to give to you, and we'd be happy to work with you and come forward with a recommendation. Knowing that,
great, Karen. That'd be great for me. I don't know about the rest of the commission, but I think that would be great for me to take a look at.
All right, good. Then let's do that. We'll keep it on the agenda.
Okay, that sounds good. And we will, because right now it's just Barbara and I here. It's not the other members of the commission also that we would like to get their input and get them involved also. And
so bring it back to your commission, and then we'll talk about it next month.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know we have to move on, Rick.
Yeah, before we go tonight, because I know a couple of members have another meeting. This Thursday is our regular meeting, and the chairman's going to bring the text amendments that Bill Holsworth and I have been finalizing on the outside restaurant regulations. We have completed that. We have 4 applications currently before us to start working on minor site plan applications. The restaurants are thrilled that the Planning and Zoning Commission is giving the task to the to staff. So they're totally thrilled about it. Now, what we have to do is to continue with the text amendments regarding the outside restaurant, and we are going to have that. And we are going to ask the chairman to pick a date of April 25th. So if all of the commissioners are in support this Thursday, the commission will direct staff to make the referrals to the regional planning agencies and adjacent towns. And we'll concentrate on the text amendment specifically for the restaurants, because they are queuing up in our department, everyone. And they want to move ahead. We all know about the changes with the executive order. That's going to be happening very soon. And they're just hoping for warmer weather, which is right down the road. And they'll be coming in from that. So the 2 main sections, and I'll have the final text tomorrow morning, because we did some last minute editing. So I'll send that out tomorrow. But the main sections are section 613, accessory outside dining, and 7.13, minor site plan application. You're going to give staff more leeway in handling these, and we're taking away the restriction of the special exception permit provision in that. So you're allowing staff to do all these wonderful things administratively. So I think that completes that. Does any commissioners have any questions?
Does that include that you've given us, what you approved?
Yes.
That's gonna be in that text amendment?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you should be able to see it before the meeting, so we can talk about it
Oh, absolutely.
with the full commission.
So,
All right,
yeah.
is there,
forward to that.
anything else anyone would like to bring up tonight? Rick, is that it for the
Well,
agenda?
as the commission knows, we're moving ahead with the public hearing for the POCD. We have, as I indicated in my last email, we have fulfilled all the statutory referrals. Office of Policy and Management, Town Council, they had no comments. Filed a copy in the town clerk's office. And lastly, we just have to do 2 more legal notices in the voices. And Georgia, correct me if I'm wrong, is it April 20? Yeah, it's April 25th is the public hearing.
I don't have a calendar in front of my face. Give me 1 second.
So Mike, remember, we'll have the POCD April 25th and then these text amendments.
All right, good.
But everything is positive,
Okay.
Rick,
let me
April
just-
25th is a Sunday, so it's got it. I think it's the 28th is a Wednesday. Does that
Yeah,
sound
I
right?
meant to say Thursday. Is it Thursday or Wednesday? Well, whatever, I'll get the date out.
April 28th is a Wednesday.
So if we do it on a Thursday, it's the 29th.
Okay. All right,
Is that-
great. Anything else
Mike, is that the third Thursday, 29th?
of April?
Yeah.
The third
It's the
Thursday is
fifth
actually the
Thursday.
15th. Your P and Z meetings are the 8th and the 22nd because we pushed it for
Oh, we pushed it back.
some reason.
We pushed it back?
Yeah.
No, that's no good. All right, is there anything else then for tonight?
No, that's it. And I'll look into the meeting dates, everyone, all right? Just so we have a handle on it.
Okay.
All right, well then, thank you very much. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay. Thank you. We'll see you all on Thursday.